Let me guess, you've heard it 100 times before that PPC and ads on Amazon are only for private label sellers. Or maybe you've heard that running PPC doesn't make sense if you're sharing the buy box. Today, I'm gonna show you why you should be running ads on Amazon, even if you're not a private label seller, and even if you're sharing the buy box. In this video, we'll cover what are PPC ads and why PPC ads are worth it for resellers, how to launch and optimize PPC campaigns, which numbers and metrics to track from within those campaigns to make sure it's actually profitable and you're not wasting your money. And I'll even show some real examples from campaigns in my business. Okay, now I'm gonna take you into Amazon Seller Central, into the advertising console, and we're gonna get extremely practical with the rest of this video as I show you how to implement PPC advertising profitably in your business. Okay, so right now we're in Seller Central. This first step is extremely easy, just gonna show you how to get to the spot where you're gonna set up advertising. So in the top left, you're gonna open up the menu, go to advertising, and then click on Campaign Manager. Typically, I like to open it in a new tab versus just replacing the tab that's already there. And then that'll take you to this page. What we're looking at here is some data from one of the portfolios of my brand. So all of the campaigns for a specific brand, the brand name is blurred out, but you can see the data from what I've spent with this brand. So we've spent just about $1,500 on advertising, which has generated an additional $27,000 in sales, which is extremely profitable for us based on the margins that we have for this brand. I'll break down more of these numbers and what they mean in a little bit, but I wanted to show you how effective advertising can be. So let's debunk some myths quickly. One is that people often believe if they're running advertising on a listing where they're sharing the buy box, that they are helping their competitors as well. Not true. PPC ads on Amazon only get shown to a customer while you're in the buy box. So when the buy box is rotating, if you are not in the buy box, Amazon will not be showing your ads to customers, which means you won't be spending money on those ads and you won't be getting clicks or spend from that. So it's actually impossible for you to run an ad, a customer click on that ad costs you money, and then the competitor gets the sale. If you get sales on a product, that means you're in the buy box, which means when the customer clicks that ad, they will also be purchasing from your offer. So you do not need to worry about spending money on ads that's actually going to your competitors. You only spend money on ads when you're in the buy box, which is huge. Second is that ads can be too expensive or not worth it. Now, if you set up your ads incorrectly and you don't know what you're doing, it is possible to spend money on ads and not get any sales from that. Obviously, that's not what we want to do, which is part of the reason why I'm making this video, to show you how to set up ads in a way so that you can have campaigns that look like this, that you're spending money on. Now, there are many different kinds of campaigns that you can set up within the Amazon Campaign Manager. The specific kind of campaign that I want to show you guys how to set up today is called an auto campaign. And these kind of campaigns are extremely effective for multiple reasons. We'll get into more of those, but with an auto campaign, when you set it up, you can include specific ASINs that you want to sell, and Amazon will pick the keywords or search terms that your ad will show up for. And this is really helpful, especially when you're first starting out, because doing keyword research and search term research is very extensive, very in-depth. But when you're doing an auto campaign, Amazon will kind of pick the keywords for you, which is actually really effective, and in my experience is really good. We pretty much run an auto campaign on every single product that we have. Before I go into the step-by-step process on how to set up an advertising campaign, in this section, I want to go over some of the different terminology and statistics that are good to understand about your campaign to make sure that it's actually profitable the way you want it to, and just to understand how it's working. So the first thing here is impressions. This is just how many times Amazon is showing your ad to a customer. So for this specific campaign, right, so the number of times ads were displayed, very straightforward. This ad was displayed almost 1 million times this year to customers. And that's because this is on a product that already has very high velocity. A lot of people are using it. It's a replenishable product that people are buying over and over again. So that's why that impression rate is so high. Now, out of this 1 million impressions, we got over 1,000 clicks, which is actually a decent click-through rate. So CTR stands for click-through rate, which is just the amount of clicks divided by the amount of impressions. So out of the amount of people that saw the ad, out of those almost 1 million people, 0.1% of those people click through. For an auto campaign, now that is a very low CTR. If I was a private label seller, I would want a CTR much higher than that. But for what we're looking for, the CTR isn't really the most important thing here. We just want to make sure it's profitable. But again, I want to show you all of these things so you have an understanding of what's going on. Next, we're going to see the spend. This is pretty straightforward. That's just how much we spent on this campaign, $78 over the course of a year. Cost per click. This is how much each individual click costs. Now, let's say, for example, that this was a garlic press, which it's not actually for this, but just for the sake of the example. If this was an auto campaign for a garlic press, that means that Amazon could have the ad show up for garlic press. They could have it show up for a silver garlic press. They could have it show up for garlic press for kitchen. Any sort of search term that someone's typing into Amazon that's related to that product. Now, if that is a high volume search term, I mean, people are searching for it, obviously with this campaign, because there's 1 million impressions, that means these kinds of products are being searched probably 10 million times on Amazon, or over this course of time since January 1st through July 25th. And when an ad is served, you don't actually spend any money. So someone might see the ad, but they don't click on it. With pay-per-click advertising, you pay for that ad spot when someone clicks on the ad. And so out of these 1,125 clicks, my average cost per click, which is CPC, was 7 cents per click. Now, my specific strategy with this campaign is for it to be a low cost per click campaign. Depending on the kind of campaign that you set up, what kind of keywords that you're targeting, you can have cost per clicks as high as $5, $10, $15. Obviously, you need to have a lot of margin for that to be worth it. But one of the beautiful things about this kind of campaign is that you can start really small, which is what I recommend everyone do. Especially in the beginning, you want to test. You don't want to spend too much money and waste money. You want to start small, see what works, and then go up from there. So cost per click is just how much you're spending on average when a customer clicks on that. Orders, this is how many orders I got from this spend. So 200 orders, 200 additional orders. Sales comes out to how much in sales I did. I'll just read this because this definition is very straightforward and easy to understand. It's the percentage of your sales that you spend on advertising. This is calculated by dividing your spend by sales attributed to your ads. Attributed sales may include products not featured in the ad. Attribution varies by campaign. So if you take your spend, which in this case was $78, and divide that by that $5,000 and change in sales, that's where we get that 1.56%. Now that is an extremely good ACOS. And another reason why I highly, highly recommend that you do. Now this is where it gets really interesting. With this product, it's a lower margin, faster moving product. So I want to say my margin on the product is about 10 to 12%. So if you were to take that 10%, I'm just essentially allocating 10% of that margin into advertising to get these additional sales. But that's just on the sales that came directly from my advertising spend. When I take into account all of the organic sales that I got without advertising, my advertising cost of sale on this product is actually going to be closer to, I want to say 0.25%. And that is what we call our total ACOS or TACOS, or total advertising cost of sales, which includes not just the sales for the product that came with the advertising spend, but also factoring in the organic sales for that product in addition to the sales that came directly from ad spend, which is important in calculating that total profit. And then ROAS it's a similar number to ACOS, it's just a different calculation. So I'll read this too. The revenue you receive from your advertising investment. This is calculated by dividing sales attributed to your ads by your spend. Attributed sales may include products not featured in the ad. Attribution varies by campaign. So it's the same two numbers. Dividing spend by sales, you're just dividing sales by spend. So it's really the same number, just flipped, or using the same numbers to get that metric. Just ROAS of 64 is so good. And obviously can't guarantee that you're gonna see those sort of results, but I mean, I've seen this obviously for myself in multiple campaigns in my own business and in multiple campaigns in other sellers' businesses as well. And so when you're first starting out, obviously, if you're able to set up a campaign like this, get higher return, then you can start playing around with different things after that and get a little bit more surgical in how you set up your campaign. Okay, next, I'm gonna go into the actual steps how to set up this campaign, which is extremely easy to do. So going back to the campaign manager. So this is actually data that we're looking at right now that's for my campaigns over the course of this year. So you can see I've spent about 12,000 on ads so far. That's gotten me 1,800 orders, an additional 85,000 in sales, gotten 12,000 clicks. And there's other metrics that I could look at here too. But we won't dive into all that now because I kind of already showed you with the one campaign. But this is also based on this spend and the additional sales I'm getting. Obviously, this is extremely profitable. Okay, so to create a new campaign, right? This is when you open up the Amazon Ads campaign manager from Seller Central. This is where it will take you to first. We're just going to go to create campaign. And we're going to do sponsored products. So for this video, I'm just focusing on sponsored products. Each one of these other kinds of ads has their place, but specifically, I mean, in my business, 90% of our campaigns are sponsored products. We find these to be the most effective based on the kind of products we're selling. And for most resellers, I also recommend that you start with sponsored products. So we're going to go continue here. You can name the ad group whatever you want. I normally name it based on the product, and my strategy is to keep one ad group per campaign. So I normally have the same name for my ad group and my campaign name. This isn't as important, but it's more so just to be able to keep track of campaigns, especially as you start to have a lot. So I'm gonna go, I'll just do product name test for the ad group name. This one, I'm just gonna leave it here. Sometimes Amazon will push ads onto other platforms as well, which is actually kind of cool. And here you're gonna pick your ASIN. So there are a couple different strategies here that you can do. The simplest one is to add every single ASIN that you have into one catch-all campaign. Now, that will work. It will be effective. You will get more sales. However, I would recommend segmenting your campaigns by brand, depending on how many different brands and how many different products you have in that brand. Another thing you could do is if you have one brand that is the majority of your catalog, or maybe 2 or 3 brands that they're like do the most of your sales, have the larger brands have their own campaigns, and then maybe throw all of the other products into another campaign. You can mess around with it. You could start with one campaign for your whole catalog and then see how it's performing based on different products and go from there. But those are what I do in my business. Is I have a portfolio for every single brand that we work with. Now, I also work directly with brands and have some products that we're exclusive on. So I'm spending a lot more in ads there, which is another reason why I do that. But even if you're a reseller and you're fighting for the buy box on all of your products, it still could be a good idea to have different campaigns or portfolios per brand. So you're gonna add an ASIN. It'll pop up here on the right. We'll probably blur this out, but that's where it'll show up. And you can add, again, one ASIN, all ASINs, however you want to do that. I kind of went over the strategy. This is where you select the targeting. So automatic targeting, this is what I mean by auto campaign. Amazon will target keywords and products that are similar to the product in your ad, which means Amazon's doing most of the heavy lifting for you. You don't have to worry about selecting the right kind of keywords, which is 100% what I recommend to do. Manual targeting, I'll go more in depth on this in a different video, but This is where you can specifically choose the exact keywords in search terms. So if someone's typing in garlic press silver, garlic press for home kitchen, something like that, you can type in that exact search term phrase that you want to target, which makes a lot more sense to do when you're exclusive on a product, or if you've been selling on a product for a long time. And you can actually, so with the auto campaign, you can see the specific search terms that are working well. And then maybe what you want to do is grab those search terms and then put them in a manual campaign. But again, I'll go more in depth on that on another video. Don't want to go too much on that tangent now, but just wanted to show you guys what the difference is there. But for this, we're going to do an auto campaign and then suggested bids. This is another place where you can get creative and start to experiment with different things. To start, you saw how in the one campaign I showed you that my average cost per click was 7 cents. What I recommend to do to start, especially if this is your first time setting up a campaign, put in a 5-cent bid, and then negative targeting, we're not doing that. Negative product, we're not doing that. Put this on dynamic up, leave it on dynamic bids up and down. I'll read this description here. We'll raise your bids, we being Amazon, will raise your bids by a maximum of 100% in real time when your ad may be more likely to convert a sale, and lower your bids when less likely to convert a sale. So in this situation, a 5-cent bid, increase that by 100%, which is just 5 cents plus 5 cents. You could bid up to 10 cents or as low as, I guess, 2 cents. And so, I think the minimum bid is 2 cents. So as low as 2 cents. And what this does, it gives Amazon a little bit more of a range to play with, and still going all the way up to 10 cents. It's like a 10-cent click isn't going to break the bank, and it is worth it. So I recommend starting at 5-cent bid and then going from there. And then what you could also do is let that campaign run for a week, 2 weeks. If that campaign is profitable, you could start another campaign and then have it run with a higher bid of maybe 25 cents, 50 cents, $1. You can play around with it, and then you just want to make sure that when you're looking at your ACOS, at your ROAS, that it's still profitable based on the margin that you have on your products. But again, to start, I would say 5-cent bid, dynamic bids up, down. We're not going to get into these either. I'll break these down more in a different video, but leave all of these at 0. And then campaign name, this is where you could just put product name. If you're doing one ASIN, or if you're doing ASINs from brand, you could do brand name. Or if you're putting all of your ASINs in one, I call it a catch-all campaign, just catching all of your ASINs. So catch-all, whole catalog. You can name it whatever you want, again, just for the sake of the example. And this is also where you can pick portfolios. So I'm going to blur my portfolios out here, but each one of these is for a different brand. And then when I'm making new campaigns for new products, I put them in the appropriate brand. Daily budget, this you can set based on your size, how much you're willing to invest. Again, I recommend starting small because you can always increase your budget later. So you could start as small as $5, $10. You can see here it's recommending $12. But when you check your campaigns, Amazon will show you when you're running out of budget. And so if you set a $5 campaign and you're spending $5 and that $5 is getting you sales and it's profitable, let it run for a few days, make sure it's consistent, then up it to $10. And if the same thing happens and you're running out of budget, you're spending that full $10 every day and it's still profitable, increase it again. But this also puts a cap on it. So in case if maybe you spend the $5, you let it run for a week or two and it's not getting any sales, and it's like, okay, 2 weeks went by and you spent $5 every day. So trying to do some mental math, but maybe you spent 20, 30 bucks, you didn't break the bank, but you were able to run an experiment, and then you can maybe test with some different campaigns and on different products. So again, I recommend starting small, especially if this is your first time running a campaign, and then increasing your budget, increasing your spend per click as you continue to run the campaigns and experience. Then you can launch this campaign or save it as a draft if you want to come back later. Then once you launch it, takes I think like 10 to 20 minutes for it to go live. And then my recommendation again is let it run for like a week, 2 weeks, check in on it every few days just to make sure everything's working correctly. And then from there, you'll be able to have enough data to make sure that this campaign's actually working well. All right, guys, just to summarize real quick. With PPC ads, you will only spend ads when you're in the buy box, which means that you're also not actually helping your competitors. You will only spend money if that sale is gonna be coming to you. If you're starting out, just use an auto campaign, keep it simple, low bid, low budget, let it test for a week or two, and then as you get more data on that campaign, increase your bid, increase your budget, and make sure that it stays profitable. Go back, watch parts of this video that you didn't fully understand, make sure that you're taking notes, make sure that you understand based on the explanations that I gave what impressions are, what click-through rate is, your cost per click, your ACOS, your ROAS, and use all of those things to make sure that you're staying profitable, specifically your ACOS and your ROAS. And I'll explain this part again. I'm gonna use round numbers just for the sake of the example. Let's say we have a product that sells for $100 and the profit on that product is $10. That means we have a 10% margin, okay? If we had an advertising cost of sale of 2%, that means the advertising cost of the sale on that $100 being 2% would be $2. So if we spent $2 on ads, which is that ACOS, then our profit would then go from 10% margin, $10 down to $8. So that's how that advertising cost of sale works. And the way that I look at it with all of my campaigns is knowing what my margin is on the product. So let's say it's a product with a much higher margin, 20%. That means I might be willing to invest 5% into advertising, which would be a 5% ACOS. But a product where I have a tighter margin, a 10%, then I definitely would want to make sure that my advertising cost of sale is between that 1%, 2%, because I don't want to spend all of my profit on ads. So make sure you're keeping track of your ACOS, make sure you're keeping track of your ROAS. And if you guys have any questions or anything else that you want me to break down in more detail in a future video, drop a comment below. Remember to like the video, subscribe, and feel free to ask any questions in the comments, and I'll do my best to get back to all of you. Peace.